Good morning, everyone. Today, I want to talk about why you feel spiritually exhausted and how to fix it today. This is one of those things that can be hard to explain, but you know when it's happening. You're trying to stay connected, you're trying to pray, you're trying to keep showing up, but instead of feeling renewed, you feel drained. Instead of feeling grounded, you feel scattered. Instead of feeling close to God, you feel tired, distracted, and off. And it doesn't really make sense, right? You see, part of you is thinking, if I'm still trying, why do I feel like this? Or why does everything feel so heavy? Or maybe you've asked yourself, why does even prayer feel harder than it used to? Well, if that's where you've been lately, I want to talk through that with you in a really honest way. You see, I think what's happening here is deeper than most people realize. And once you understand it, you can actually start responding to it differently. So, the first part that we'll look at is what spiritual exhaustion actually feels like. You see, spiritual exhaustion is one of those things people experience before they know how to name it. You see, in real life, it can look like this. You sit down to pray, but your mind won't slow down. You try to read scripture, but nothing seems to land. You want to feel more connected, but everything feels flat. You're still doing the things you normally do, but internally something feels worn out. Have you noticed that? You know, it's not always dramatic. Sometimes it just feels like a low level heaviness that follows you around. And this is where it gets tricky. A lot of people assume that if they feel spiritually exhausted, it must mean they're doing something wrong. So they start telling themselves, maybe I'm not disciplined enough. Or maybe I'm just inconsistent. Or maybe you've told yourself this. Maybe I need to try harder. I think all of us tried that one. Or maybe something is wrong with me spiritually. That's usually the first interpretation. But a lot of the time, that interpretation is wrong. Because the problem is not always that you care too little. Sometimes the problem is that you've been carrying too much. And that's a very different issue. So, why does this feel so confusing? Well, let me explain what I mean. Spiritual exhaustion is confusing because on the outside, it can look like you're still engaged. You haven't completely checked out. You haven't stopped caring. And you haven't fully walked away. If anything, you may be trying more than ever. And that's what makes this so frustrating, right? When you push harder and try harder, it just things compound. So you're putting in effort, but you're feeling less. You're doing the right things, but something still feels off. And when effort isn't producing relief, people usually go one of two directions. Either they start blaming themselves or they start forcing more. More pressure, more striving, more trying to get back to where they think they should be. But here's where most people get stuck. They respond to exhaustion with more effort, and more effort doesn't heal overload. That just deepens it. So, what's actually causing it? What's really going on? You know, I think what's happening here is usually a mix of a few things. One is you've been carrying internal weight without realizing how much it's costing you. This could be stress, disappointment, mental overload, emotional pressure, or unprocessed frustration. How about quiet grief or constant overthinking? A lot of us are in that category. You see, on a normal day, you may still be functioning well enough that you don't stop and notice how much is piling up inside. But eventually, your inner world starts to feel crowded. And when your inner world is crowded, spiritual connection gets harder to recognize. Not because God disappeared, but because you're trying to relate to Him through mental and emotional noise. Does that sound familiar to you? The second area is that we've started treating connection like something you have to force. You see, this is a big one. Because sometimes, without even realizing it, you start approaching God like closeness is something you have to manufacture. So now there's pressure every time you pray. Pressure to feel something, pressure to focus, pressure to get back to where you were, pressure to prove that you're still okay spiritually. And pressure changes the whole experience. You see, once connection becomes performance, it stops feeling relational. It starts feeling heavy. The third area is that we may be exhausted in more than one area. You see, this next part is important because sometimes what we call spiritual exhaustion is not only spiritual. It could be mental, emotional, and or physical. And because your spiritual life is connected to your whole person, all of that spills together. So if you're mentally worn down, emotionally overloaded, and physically tired, of course, your spiritual life is going to feel different too. That doesn't mean your faith is broken. It means your whole system is asking for attention. So, here's a core insight moment for you. Let me say this as clearly as I can. The real issue isn't that you're not trying hard enough. It's that you're overloaded and responding to that overload with more pressure. That's the cycle. You feel drained. So you assume you need to do more. But doing more creates more pressure. More pressure creates more exhaustion. And then you start feeling even worse. That cycle feels convincing because effort sounds spiritual. That's why people stay stuck in it. You see, they think, and maybe one of these thoughts have crossed your mind. If I just push harder, I'll get breakthrough. But sometimes pushing harder is the very thing keeping you exhausted. And once you see that, everything starts to make more sense. You know, if you're already realizing, that, I've been carrying more than I thought. Well, if that thought's crossed your mind, I want you to know that I put together something very simple for you. It's a free guide. It's called the Spiritual Exhaustion Reset Guide. It walks you step by step through how to actually start releasing what's been building up. You can download the free guide in the description below. So check that out when you get a chance. So, what is this doing to us internally? This exhaustion. Well, this matters because spiritual exhaustion doesn't just stay in one category. You see, internally, it starts affecting how you think, how you feel, and how you relate to God. Mentally, you become scattered. Your attention weakens. You feel foggy. Quiet feels harder to access. Emotionally, you start feeling flat, discouraged, or irritated. And sometimes you don't even know why. Spiritually, we may start interpreting our exhaustion as distance from God, or we may interpret it as failure. Or we can see it as a sign that something is wrong with you or me. But again, that interpretation can be misleading because feeling exhausted is not the same thing as being abandoned. That distinction is very important for us to grasp. So, what do you actually do with this? What are some things that we can put in motion, some practical steps that will help us deal with this? Step number 1. Name the exhaustion honestly. You see, the first step is to stop being vague about it. Instead of just saying, I feel off, slow it down and ask, what kind of exhaustion is this? Is it mental, emotional, spiritual, physical? Or maybe it's a mix of all of them. You see, when this actually happens, clarity matters. You can't respond well to something you haven't named. So be honest. What has been weighing on you lately? What has been quietly draining you? What have you been carrying that you haven't really admitted? You see, those questions alone can open up a lot. Number 2, stop answering exhaustion with more pressure. You see, this is where the shift begins. If your first instinct is always, I need to do more, pause. Because sometimes the most spiritual thing you can do is stop increasing the pressure. That doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop punishing yourself. So instead of saying, I need to force this, Try saying this: I need to understand what's happening. You see, that's a healthier response. Be honest and answer the question: what's been your pattern here? When do you feel spiritually drained? Do you get curious? Or do you immediately start pushing harder? Number 3, clear one layer at a time. Most people try to fix everything all at once. I know I'm one of those guys. You get it, boom, let's go. Take care of it. Well, that usually doesn't work very well. You see, a better approach is to clear one layer at a time. Maybe today that means getting quiet long enough to notice what you're feeling. Maybe it means journaling what's been sitting heavy on you. Maybe it means praying honestly instead of trying to sound composed. Maybe it means admitting that you're tired and need rest. Simple is powerful. You do not need a dramatic reset every time. Sometimes you just need honest space. So ask yourself, what is one thing I'm carrying right now that needs to be brought into the light? This is a good place. So start here. Number 4, return to simple connection. You know, when people get spiritually exhausted, they often make connection more complicated than it needs to be. In real life, rebuilding usually starts simple. A short, honest prayer, a few quiet minutes, one passage of scripture read slowly, one truthful conversation with God instead of a pressured performance. You see, this isn't about intensity. It's about steadiness. This is where you begin shifting from striving to relationship. And this is what growth actually looks like. Not, I forced myself into a spiritual breakthrough, but it's more like I came back honestly, consistently, and without pretending. Step number 5. Let today be a reset, not a verdict. You know, this part is really important because a hard season does not have to become your identity. Spiritual exhaustion is a condition. It is not your definition. You're starting to become someone who notices overload early, someone who responds with honesty instead of shame, someone who stops confusing pressure with devotion. You're someone who knows how to come back to God without performing. That is real growth. So don't turn this moment into proof that you're failing. Let it become a reset point in your life. So, what is the transformation journey? Well, if I could sum it up simply, it would be this. You are not just trying to stop feeling spiritually exhausted. You are learning how to live in a way that doesn't keep recreating that exhaustion. You see, that's the deeper shift. You move from pushing harder to paying attention, self-pressure to honesty, confusion to clarity, overload to intentional release, performance to real connection. That's the work. That's the journey. And it usually happens more gradually than people expect. You see, it's not going to happen all at once, but it's layer by layer. And this is where it shifts. Once you stop treating the exhaustion like a personal failure, you can finally start addressing it like a real condition. That changes. You see, we come to the realization that it's all really about relationship. So, don't just watch this video and move on. I invite you to take a step with it. Download the free Spiritual Exhaustion Reset Guide below and start working through this clearly. And if you want to go deeper, I also created a Fix Your Spiritual Exhaustion in 7 Days program. It's designed to help you actually break this cycle step by step. Both of the links are in the description below. I appreciate it if you take some time, go down, leave a comment, let me know what resonated with you. Be glad to hear from you, and make sure you get that free download. So in closing, let me just say this to you. If you've been feeling spiritually exhausted lately, I really want you to hear this. You're not crazy for feeling it. You're not weak for feeling it. And you're not alone in it. What you're experiencing makes sense. And once something makes sense, you can start working with it instead of just feeling trapped by it. So today, keep it simple. Name what's draining you. Stop adding pressure. Clear one layer at a time. And come back to God honestly. Let today be your reset. Well, that's enough for today. If you need help walking that out, download the Spiritual Exhaustion Reset Guide in the description. It's there to help you work through this in a clear, practical way. In the next video, we're going to talk about something closely connected to this. Why you feel distant from God even when you're trying. Because a lot of people, spiritual exhaustion and spiritual distance get tangled together. Once you understand that connection, a lot starts to make sense. Thanks for being with us. God bless you. As you walk through this, may you begin to feel the weight lift in real, steady ways. May you have the clarity to recognize what you've been carrying and the courage to release it. May your mind begin to quiet, your heart begin to settle, and your connection with God feel simple again. And may you remember, you were never meant to carry everything alone.